So this is a Heatmiser job that we're part way through at the minute. So the heating engineer installed this new combi boiler, a junior 24 kilowatt I think. So there's the heating loops there, so it's for the upstairs radiator. So at the minute it's got an upstairs radiator circuit, and then he's put in these new pipe work down and round to this manifold here. So he piped all this up, pressurized it all, but just left it not connected with no controls. And this Heatmiser gear was just, well, that UH8 RF was here, and 7 of these thermostats were here. Yeah, so he's just kind of got the heating working upstairs on the traditional thermostat. So this unit here, the thermostat upstairs is connected wirelessly to this. So at the minute, as it stands, the thermostat comes on upstairs the way it was left, and then it heats obviously this heating circuit up, heats the radiators up upstairs. None of this was connected, so this underfloor heating that's been installed on this entire ground floor hasn't been working for 3 weeks now. So yeah, this has all been underfloor heating throughout the ground floor. And screeded everywhere. So yeah, he's left him with hot water and heating upstairs, but no heating downstairs. So it's just got to the point where he doesn't know what he's doing at this point, so he's just left it. But really, the customers now have to pay for this, us to come out and do this, and it should have been included in his heating installation cost. Really, this isn't up to the customer really to be paying for this, you know, after he's done his job and left a system partially working. So this is quite a common thing that we come across now, that, you know, an electrician, that's because there's electrical work going on here, they've obviously had a full refurb, so the electrician doesn't know how to sort this out, and the actual plumber doesn't know how to sort this out. So there's 2 people on site that don't know how to, and then it sort this, and then it just gets left. So yeah, it's quite a common thing that we come to. So Tom yesterday has connected all the actuators up to the UH8 RF. We put a joint box on, so all the cables go. It's just so basically it's not overcrowded inside this, so we do everything to a joint box, and we just run a 4-core flex to this, a 4-core flex to that, a 4-core flex to the boiler. It makes it neat to just having all the Wago connectors inside this, instead of trying to cram it all into one of these smaller enclosures. Even though this is quite big, there's only space at the bottom for connections inside this. So this is all paired, and technically, you know, it's running as it should. The pump's on now because one of the thermostats is calling for heat. Thermostat 4 is calling for heat, so the pump fires up, the motorized valve opens, yeah, which there's no resistance on that, so it's open, and then the actuator there, you can see that the little pin is popped up on that, and all the rest are down. So that means the circuit's calling for heat. So it's actually functioning electrically, but we haven't got the plumbing bit side of it working yet. So the boiler upstairs isn't calling at the minute for heat. So because there's no heat being called for on the upstairs thermostat, and there's no flow of water down here. This pump is literally circulating this water around these circuits. That's all that's doing at the minute, because we haven't sorted the boiler control out yet. We've had to add this onto the circuit as well, because there's a separate Worcester thermostat upstairs controlling the boiler, which we're going to remove, and we're going to add this onto the system. This here is going to do the upstairs radiator circuit, controlled by one of these separately. And then the plumber, what he should have done is he's put a zone valve on there to do the underfloor heating. He should have put a zone valve on the flow pipe here at the boiler as well, so we can separate the upstairs from the downstairs. So we've got a 2-port motorized valve here, which we're going to put on. We're going to break into that flow pipe there, and then we're going to connect that zone valve. We're going to connect this basically into this joint box, which is connected to this. So when that thermostat upstairs calls for heat, it switches this on, and therefore it sends power to the zone valve, which opens the valve. It'll open that valve, and then it will have a switch live back to the boiler, which then fires the boiler up. So it keeps the underfloor heating separate and the upstairs completely separate, because upstairs runs at a hotter temperature and it doesn't take as long to heat up, whereas the underfloor heating down here works at whatever we set this at. So we got 60 degrees say, but normally these run at about 40 usually. And it's got to get through a load of screed as well. So that's why we need these to be separate. We need that to be on as long as it needs to be to heat the entire ground floor up. So this is going to take hours longer than what upstairs is going to take. So we need to separate the two, because when upstairs is satisfied, we still need downstairs to continue running. And the way it was set up before, it wouldn't work like that. The upstairs would reach temperature, and then it would turn off basically the boiler, which would turn off all the underfloor heating downstairs. So that was the way it was set up before, and it won't work like that. Right, I've just come to put some juice onto this, switch the boiler on, pump was running. This auto, as soon as that, so none of these have been opened at the top, so we need to open these up at the top and get these each pipe at the right bar, each circuit at the right bar. So when this has been filled up by the plumber, he's done it right. So none of these were open, which allows the water to flow through the pipe. So you can hear it now. So I've turned the juice onto this. The pressure started dropping on that. There's lots of air in the system, so I don't think this has been filled up properly. So I've took all these valves off. I'm going to open all these up at the top, let the water, and then try and either get the air out of the system or empty it and refill it. So these at the top have got the little numbers on. That indicates the bar pressure in each one of these pipes, each one of these circuits. So heating on or not, if you take this actuator off here and open the circuit, and as you twist this to the right, that little spring should be moving downwards and increasing in pressure. But I've opened all these and nothing is happening. So that indicates that this system hasn't been filled up or filled up properly. So this is still spitting air out. You can hear water running in the system. So as I've opened all these, it's probably taking water from the central heating system and filling this up, and then reducing the pressure in the boiler. Yeah, so that was at 1.5 bar before. I've opened them, and it's taking all that pressure from the boiler and then also all the air that's in it as well. So this plumber hasn't filled the system up, which he should have done before we came to it. Right, so what the plumber had done then is he'd filled the upstairs heating loop, and he'd filled these pipes with water until this bit here. So he filled all this loop up, that connector pipe there that connects us to that, and then filled this up. So this was showing 2 bar of pressure on here, so it looked like the system was filled, and it was showing 2 bar of pressure on the boiler. As soon as I have opened the actuators and opened these pressure adjustments, it's just sucked. These were bone dry empty, whereas the plumber thought he'd filled them up. Well, him not knowing the system and not knowing what he's done. So he just filled a circle of the loop up basically. So from the boiler upstairs to the radiators, down to this manifold and back to the boiler again. So we need to get a hose pipe and fill these up one circuit at a time, get all the air out of them and get the pressure adjusted at the right pressure on the right bar of pressure on there. So we've just drained down the heating and cut the flow pipe. There's a plumber's rope on it there. So we've cut the flow, which goes to the upstairs heating circuit, and then we're going to interrupt that with this valve here, which is going to be controlled by the upstairs thermostat. Right, so came to juice this up, but only this loop here was filled up to 2 bar. None of the underfloor heating pipes were. So we've opened all the valves at the top, and then we've put all these manual valves back on the bottom. We've got water coming in from the tap outside onto that red one, and water going out on the blue one. And then we've opened this valve at the minute. So we've got the tap running, and we're going to open, and once all the air is out of this loop and filled, we'll close it, do the next one, all the air out, filled, close it, next one, next one, next one. We've turned them isolators off there, so that isolates the boiler loop, pressurized loop, and we're just concentrating on filling the underfloor heating loops. So we've got it connected to that tap there. It's going in the underfloor heating and it's coming back out here. So when this runs and all the air's out of it, we'll close that valve in there and we'll do the next loop, let all the air out, and this is how we get all the air out of the system and fill it up and pressurize it. Right, so we've ended up using the boiler water supply to fill this system up, seeing as though it's already connected, as the tap outside's leaking and we can't get decent pressure at it. So we've got this, water's flowing through the boiler now, we've got that open, filling the system up. I've got this return one closed and the flow one open. All the valves are open at the bottom, all the valves are open at the top. When we do one by one, we seem to be getting an airlock in these. Well, like I said, this should have been filled before the screed went down on the ground floor. As if there was a damaged pipe or a kinked pipe or nicked pipe with a leak, you wouldn't know after this. So you need to pressure test this before you put the screed down, really. That's better practice anyway. So that's the water running now out the manifold from the boiler. No air in it, it's running it's flowing smoothly now, no air. So all the air's out the system now, so we're gonna pressurize it. Okay, so we've got this up to 2 bar now. So the system was filled up, as you saw before. 2 bar of pressure. All the radiators are bled upstairs. We need to take there's 2 bar of pressure there, so we'll take a little bit out of that when we've finished. And then at the minute we've got all the zone valves off at the minute, because I'm just making sure that heat is flowing. So we're calling for our thermostats, even though they've not got these on. Our thermostat activates the pump and it activates the zone valve. So water's flowing from the boiler using the old thermostat, which is upstairs on the radiator circuit. So we need to remove that, and we need to remove this off the system and add it onto our Heatmiser system. So at the minute we've just got that working as normal off the old system. We've got that valve manually open up there just so hot water flows, because that's not connected yet in. There's our cable for that. That's not connected to our receiver there yet, which we've got to do. So at the minute we've got water flowing, boiler's just on, constant, and that's warm. Right, I've just come to put some juice onto this, switch the boiler on, pump was running. This auto, as soon as that, so none of these have been opened at the top, so we need to open these up at the top and get these, each pipe at the right bar, each circuit at the right bar. So when this has been filled up by the plumber, he's done it right. So none of these were open, which allows the water to flow through the pipe. So you can hear it now. So I've turned the juice onto this, the pressure started dropping on that. There's lots of air in the system, so I don't think this has been filled up properly. So I've took all these valves off. I'm going to open all these up at the top, let the water, and then try and either get the air out of the system or empty it and refill it. So you've got the UH8 controlling all these now. We had a problem when we powered it up. You've got the new zone valve there connected into that joint, which is connected to our joint box here. That is connected to the thermostat upstairs now, which controls that, which in turn switches that opens this and then fires the boiler up individually. So if upstairs needs heat but downstairs doesn't, it only sends heat upstairs and vice versa. As it's underfloor heating downstairs, it will need more time to heat up, so upstairs will get satisfied quicker, so that will switch off, but the underfloor heating will continue to run to keep downstairs working. When we powered this up from the other bit, you could see that it wasn't filled up, so we had to do all that, which I didn't expect to have to do. And then this zone here, so all these are open and you can feel the return pipes on all these circuits getting warm, but this zone 6 here, living room 2, the return pipe doesn't feel like it's getting hot, so there may be a damaged pipe in the floor, a kinked pipe or something like that, and the flow isn't getting through. As you can see, all these here, the pressure is, you can see there's pressure in them as all the springs are down, but you get to this one and it's not, it doesn't pop down when the pump kicks in, which they should do. They spring down to whatever bar of pressure is set, so all these are set at 2, whereas this one doesn't spring down, which is on 6, which is living room 2. So we're assuming there might be a damaged pipe or something with that from whoever installed the underfloor heating system. And then also these things, this is just, it doesn't really make a difference, but it's just the flow is at the top, return is at the bottom, so he's used the wrong coloured valves on top and bottom. So at first glance you'd indicate that this is the return and this is the flow, but actually it's the other way around. So when he's put this on, he's just not been looking at where they're going, and then he also put the pump on upside down. So when we powered this up, it started pumping cold water back up the flow. So these pipes that said flow and return on them, actually the return was getting red hot and the flow was getting cold. And what it was is this pump on the boiler was working the right direction. Then when it got to here, this pump was working in the opposite direction and was firing the cool water back up the flow. So we had a problem at first, like trying to work out what was going on there. We assumed that the flow and return had been connected the wrong way around, but as soon as I disconnected the pump from the supply from the pump, everything started functioning the way that it should. So this was on upside down and forcing the water the wrong way. Again, that was from the installer of the underfloor heating, so a few little mistakes he's made there. If he's made that mistake and that mistake with the colours of them, I'm assuming there's a good chance that there could be a kink in that pipe. if he's not been watching what he's doing. There's our joint box. So we've got a cable from the boiler, cable from the zone valve at the top, cable to the UH8, cable to the RF receiver. The reason why we do this is it's quite a bundle of cables, so it's just easier and neater to put them in a joint box using Wagos, and it means inside here where there's not much room, we've got more space.